my channel. This is gonna be a continuation of my last video. So in our last lectures, we created our user profile model, which is this. But before then, we created our user model. So this user model is gonna take care of our authentication, gonna save the username of the person, email and password. And then we also created our user profile model. So if you've not watched the previous video, I suggest you go back and watch the previous video, especially if you're a beginner. Now, so we did this, and then we ran the migrate command. So I'm just gonna spin up my server now. Now, to start our development server, you run python manage.py run server. So I'm just gonna open up a notes so I can be jotting down a few things for you. So I'm just gonna go to this URL. You can simply copy this URL and paste on your browser, or you click on the link. Either ways is gonna work. Just give it a few seconds to load up. So like I said in my previous video, I intentionally left some fields, omitted some fields, so that you can add them on your own and make the project different from mine. So you can use it on your resume, or use it on freelance site to bid for jobs. Like I told you, you can include a middle name here. And then you can also change the naming convention. Here I use class user profile. This user profile can be anything. You can simply call it profile, change up your own profile or whatever, call it anything. This place I said I use DOB, you can spell it out, date of birth, address underscore line 2 can be anything, city can be anything, zip or postcode can be anything. Just change up the code a little bit so it's gonna be unique to you. So right now my server is up and running. I'm just gonna go to my admin panel by putting a / here and admin. So like I told you, the Django admin panel is a powerful built-in interface that Django provides for managing application data. So when you create your tables, you can manage your information on this Django administration panel. Now, we're not gonna use this so much, but because it's a tutorial, I'm just gonna show you everything about Django, and backend development. So, but we're gonna create our own code for code operation. That is, create, read, delete, and you can perform code operations on this admin panel. So now, like we created this user profile model, and we've also migrated the changes. Now this is our user profile model here. This users is for this model we created. This model, this is for the users, and the user profiles is this other one that we created. This other one that we created here. So which is gonna manage the user's information. Now I'm gonna click on it, When I click on it, I can add a user profile. It says zero profile. So I'm just going to click on add user profile. So the first option is user. So you need to select a user. Where is this user coming from? Look at my model, the table. I said user equals models dot one to one field user. Now take notes. This is a variable name and it starts with small letter u. This is an existing model. This user is this user model here. So whatever you call this is what you're gonna type here, and this is capital letter U. This is capital letter U, while this is small letter u. So they are not the same. This is just a variable name. So if you change this to the user, for example, this is, look, it's showing error. So you have to make this the user as well. Do you understand? So whatever you name here, you name this class, that is what you're gonna input here. I'm just gonna revert back to what we have. So I'm saying when a user profile is about to be created, it should select the user from this model. That is why if you click on this drop down, you can see Eva as one of the user. Look, let me go to my users model now. Look, Eva, I have only one record, Eva. If I add another user and come to this user profile, click on add user profile, I can, when I click here, it will populate all the users here. Then I'll now select, I'll say, okay, this profile that I want to create, this information I want to compute is for this user. That is the one-to-one relationship. So user equals models dot one-to-one field user. It means one user can have one single profile. One user can have one single profile. Now, so I'm just gonna fill up this information now. I'm gonna click on this, click on Eva. First name, I'm just gonna Evans, for example. So last name John. Then profile picture. Look, this is first name, last name. Now, profile picture, I'm gonna click on choose file. I'm just gonna select an image. Cover photo, I'll select an image. Date of birth, you can click this calendar icon and choose your date of birth, but I'm just gonna select any random dates. Time, now this time is equated at, I'm sorry, so on the date of birth you can select the dates and actually the time as well. So I'm just gonna select any random time. I click on now. So address line 1, I'm gonna select whatever. Address line 2, I'm just gonna select whatever. Nationality Japan. City random. Zip or postcode, just gonna select. And mobile number, any random number. Now if you look at my database table or my model, I have cover photo, date of birth, address line 1, line 2, nationality, city, zip code, mobile number. Now all these have been captured here. Look at where it ends, mobile number. Now, why is created that and modified that not displaying here? Because they are not displaying here because these fields are automatic. I don't want the user to be able to uh, enter the value themselves. Rather, this is gonna populate it. It's gonna pick the current time. Immediately I hit on save, it's gonna select the current time and then save on this created that, and modify that is whenever I make changes. Whenever I make changes to this information, it's gonna it's gonna select the time and the date that I modify that information. So I'm able to achieve this because of this line. Author now add equals true. So created that equals models dot datetime field author now add equals true. So it's gonna add the time automatically. Modified at equals author now is no longer author now add. It's gonna be author now equals true. Author now equals true because the information is already there. You're just gonna pick the time that you modified it. And so yeah, everything looks good. I'm gonna hit the save button now. So it has been saved. This is, I have one user profile. If I go to users, I have one user, and we created this user using python manage.py create super user. Now I now have my user profile model, and it's showing Evans. If I click on this Evans now, it's gonna open the information so I can edit it. Now, yes. So when I come to this user profile, why is Evans showing there instead of maybe address or something else? Because of this string representation. I said return self dot first name. So if I change this to self dot last name, if I change this to self dot last name, it's gonna return last name. I'm just gonna try it now. Self dot last name. So I'm gonna click on file, save all, and I'm just gonna reload my page. You see, it has changed it to self the last name instead of first name. So I'm just gonna revert back to what we have. Click on save all. It has changed it back to self dot first name, my first name. Now, if I want to return first name and last name, what should I do? I can simply say plus self dot last name. However, this is gonna join the first name and the last name together, but let me just save all, and so you see, save all. I'm just gonna click on refresh the page. So it's showing Evans John. So how do I give a space in between Evans and John? Simply come in between them, an empty string. Give a space inside the empty string and then add a plus here. That's it. I don't want to use the F formatted string. This is a very simple way to concatenate first name and last name. Concatenation is adding two variables together. Now I'm gonna click on save all, and then I'm gonna refresh my page. So you see Evans John. Now, so what you should do is, because I'm gonna be showing you different ways of writing your code, and you should learn to do inline comments. So uh, I can comment this out. No, yeah, I can comment out this code. If you put hash at the front of before any line of code, is gonna comment it out. So it means this code is not gonna be active anymore. So I can copy this and just revert back to normal. I say return. So you see, so this is gonna be active, but this comment section is not gonna be active. So now you can now put a comment so that you can remember what this line of code does. So I can just type this line of code. Yeah, this line of code returns or concatenates first name and last name. Is that simple? So if you want to use this code, it means you have to remove this comment sign hash, and then you remove this write up as well. Now, but this is not gonna work because you can't have two return statements, and you can comment this as well. So this is not gonna be active. So I'm just gonna leave it at what it was. And then if you want to comment on each line of code, still make the code active, you put your hash at the end of each line of code. So I'm just gonna press on hash button. I say this code would return first. This way, whenever you come to this code, you know that, oh, okay, this code returns first name, because this initial phase of your learning stage, you're not gonna remember most of the codes that we're gonna be writing. So you need to be commenting. You can also come to this place and put a comment, this does this. You can come here, put a comment, this dot. So this is called a single line comments, commenting line by line. So I'm gonna be introducing you to different concepts gradually. The next time I'm gonna show you multi-line comments where you can comment a bulk of code. So this is how to put a comment on your code to help you remember what each code does. So now back to our admin panel. Yeah, so I have created my user profile model, but as you know, this is just an interface where we can manipulate our database, add data, modify data, delete data. But on our site, we'll create a form, using front-end technologies that the user can, when he goes to the web application, he can create his user profile, type his password, his username, and then fill up this user profile as well by himself. Fill up this user profile on our interface, not on this our Django admin backend. Okay, so that is that. Now, before we move forward, I want to introduce you to a tool called DB Browser for SQL. Now, if you go to your code, you're gonna see, okay, yeah, if you go to your code, you're gonna see that we have a file-based database. It's called db.sqlite3. So like I told you, we're gonna be building this application with um, SQLite 3. But then as we progress, I'm gonna show you how to um, build the application with Postgres and also MySQL or MySQL, whichever name you prefer. But this is a file-based SQLite is a file-based database that comes by default with Django. So the memory is small, and Postgres is better. So we're gonna use Postgres. But for learning stage, we're gonna continue with our SQLite 3. Then as we progress, I'm gonna show you better DB tools to use. Now, so this is our database. How do you actually see the SQL codes and the database from this SQLite 3? We are able to manage our database for now on this our Django admin panel. But what if I want to see this SQL database, the raw SQL database. So you can download a tool called DB browser for SQL. Just gonna write it here. Write DB browser for SQL, or you use or SQL SQLite Studio. Now for this is for SQLite 3. Now for Postgres, we're gonna be using a tool called pgadmin, and then for pgadmin for Postgres, and then for MySQL, we're gonna be using um, SQL Workbench. Yeah, so now I'm just gonna show you how to download this and how to use it to browse your database. So um, just go to your web browser and type DB browser for SQL. So this is it, DB browser for SQL, SQLite. Click on it. Now, when you click on it, just go to download, and then you download the version for your operating system. So mine is 64-bit Windows, so I'm just gonna click on it. I have it before, but I uninstalled it so I can show you how to use it. So just find a directory. I'm just gonna keep it on the desktop. So when the download is completed, click on this, open it, open the file, double click on it to install it. Click on next, accept the terms of the license agreement, and click on next. Now I want to place it on my desktop. If you want, you can also keep it in your program menu. So I'm just gonna leave it on program menu. You don't need this, just leave it, and then click on next, click on next, click on install. And then you click on finish. Now go to your desktop. So you're gonna say this is it, DB browser SQLite. Double click on it to open it up. Yeah, so this is the tool, it's open. Now I want to browse this database. So what do I do? I'll go to file, open database, click on open database from the file menu. You can also see that option here, open database, and then locate your application folder. So my application folder is ride and book. Double click on it. Now look at it. This is the database db.sqlite 3. If I open my Visual Studio Code, you're gonna see it. This is it, db.sqlite 3. So click on it and click on open. Now this is it. Now remember, initially we ran migrate command. So when you install Django and you run the migrate command, it automatically creates this database for you, db.sqlite 3, and then creates some default tables as well for you. So these are all our default tables, SQL tables, our permission table, session table, migration table, and all those. You're gonna know what all these are used for as we progress with the tutorial. But take note, look here, we have authentication underscore user. This is the table that we created. On authentication underscore user is a table that we created. Now, look, where is authentication coming from? Go to your application folder. Remember, we created an app called authentication. This is the app authentication. Now, under the authentication, we created a model. We went to models.py and then created a model called user. So this is a table. This is Django ORM system. When you do this, it automatically creates the SQL tables for you. Now, this is it, authentication underscore user. Click on it. I've clicked on it and go to browse data. When you go to browse data, in fact, you don't even need to click on anything. Just simply go to browse data. When you go to browse data, in this table section, in this drop down menu, click and select it, authentication underscore user. Click on it. Now, this is the user that we created. One, this is the password, but the password has been hashed so that the IT admin or the developer will not just go and start changing people's passwords. So it has been hashed and it is uneditable. You can't edit the password. Now, last login, first name, last name is active, date joined. These are the fields. This is the username ever. This is the email ever@gmail.com. Now, if I go to my Django admin, if I go to users, this is the table. This users table, this is what we are checking on our DB browser for SQLite 3. Now, if I go to this user table and click on it, you're gonna see all the information. Password, look at, it's been hashed. This is what you have here, the hashed password. And then we have last login, time. Don't bother about groups and yeah, first name, last name. I'm gonna explain these groups stuff for you later on, and user permissions as well, what the user can do and what the user cannot do. First name, last name, date joined, blah blah blah, username, email, evans@gmail.com is staff, is super user. Now it means this table, this user table comes with all these fields, but we used only email, username, and password. Now look at it. Username, email, is staff, is super user. Now you can see all of that information is staff, is super user. So it comes with all these fields, but we used only this. And while creating this class, we didn't include password here because we are extending this abstract user model which has a password field. So once you type python manage.py create user super user, is going to ask you to input the password whether or not you define it here. Now this is a very simple way to to capture the user login information, but as we progress, I'm going to show you more complex way and better ways to do it. So this is our data. Now you go back to database structure, you can see all your tables. Go to browse data. So remember, we created this user table. Each class creates a table, and we also created the user profile table. This user profile table, now we can browse it. Go back to your DB browser for SQLite 3. Go to browse data. click on this drop down menu, you're gonna say, so it's gonna start with your app name. This is our app name. Our app name is authentication. And we went to inside our authentication app, went to our models and created it. So on your DB browser for SQLite 3, when you come to this drop down menu, look for your app name, authentication. This is it, authentication underscore user profile, user profile. This is it, user profile. So it's under authentication app. So when you click on authentication underscore user profile, now this is it. This is the information that I computed. This is it. Evans, John, blah blah blah, address line 1, address line 2, all this information, first name, last name, profile picture, cover, date of birth, address line 1, address line 2. This is everything that we created. Now, if you go back to your admin panel, go to your user profile and add a second record, add a second record. So it's gonna also display here, but I cannot add a second record for now because I have only one user, one user. And remember, in our code, we say we said user profile is a one-to-one field user. So only one user can have one user profile. It means for me to be able to create another user profile, that means I need to create another user. So I'm just gonna create a user here. I'm just gonna say add user, password, whatever, first name, Mark. Username, I'm just gonna say Elvis. Email. So I'm just gonna give him a staff, a supervisor, and click on save. So yeah, I've created a second user. Now, if I go back to my DB browser for SQL, go back to browse data, and then click on the user, authentication user. Look, this is it. This is the second one. And then, yeah, I'm just gonna come back to this place. I can now add a user profile for this second user, Elvis. I say user profile, click on add user profile, select the user, Elvis. You can't select ever now. If you try to create a user profile for ever now, it's gonna give you an error. So I'm just gonna select Elvis, and then I'm just gonna automatically I installed a plugin, fake filler, so it's gonna fill my form very quickly for me. Fill this form, you know. Then I'm just gonna select the profile picture, cover photo, dates, check the information if the dates are valid, and then I click on save. You see, I selected ever, so it's saying user profile with this user already exists. So you can't create a second user profile again forever because of this one-to-one relationship model that we defined here. So I have to change this back to Elvis. Yeah, select my picture again. So just keep playing around with this. You're gonna make mistakes and then you try to resolve the errors. That's how you're gonna learn. So it has created a second user profile. If I go back to my daily browser, I go to, it's still on browse data, come to this drop down menu, click and select user profile, authentication underscore user profile. Look at it, second one. So this is it. Now, yes, so that's it. So this is one app that you can use. DB browser for SQLite 3. This is a DB browser for SQLite 3. Oh, let's install SQLite Studio as well. They are almost the same thing, just little differences. SQLite Studio, SQLite Studio download. So just search for SQLite Studio download, click on it, SQLite Studio, click on it. And then you should download the version that is compatible with your operating system. So save the installer, and then once it's done, you open it and install it. So you can use DB browser for SQL or SQLite Studio. So I'm showing you different tools that you can use. So if a client asks you to use SQLite Studio or DB browser, or you see it, you're gonna know what it is, and then but for deployment, we're not gonna use this. We're gonna use a more robust database such as Postgres. Now click on next, accept the license agreement, click on next, click on next, click on next, click on next. So I have all this app installed before, but I just uninstalled so I can reinstall and show you how it works. Click on finish. So I will come back to this. I'll show you more things to do, how to write SQL queries. If you don't want to use these Django ORM features to create your models and your tables, you can actually write your SQL codes here, and then it's gonna create the tables and all this. But yeah, so we're gonna come back to this later on as we progress. But for now, I'm just gonna close it so I can show you how SQLite Studio works. So this is it. Now I'm just gonna close it for now. So when I go to my browser, this is my SQLite Studio. Let me just delete this installer, and this is SQLite Studio, and this is DB browser for SQLite. I've shown you how to browse your database with this. So for this, I'm just gonna double click on it. So it's showing this because I've added the database before I uninstall. So when I reinstall, it's just populated everything again. So I'm just gonna remove it. It's not clicking. I don't know why. Yeah. So to remove it, just right click on it. It's working now. Right click on it. Click on remove database. Yes. So yours should be like this. Yours should be like this when you install it first time. So now to see my database or to browse my database, go to database, click on add a database. So yeah, it's select SQLite 3, which is gonna be selected by default. File, so you locate the file, click on this icon, and then go to your application folder, which is book, write and book, and then you're gonna see it DB. Select it, click on it, and click on select, and click on OK. So when you click on OK, you can expand it by double clicking. So it's gonna show you all the tables as well, just as we have on DB browser for SQL. So this is my authentication underscore user, the same thing, the app name authentication underscore user. Double click on it. Once you double click, it gives you the content, the database structure. This is our ID, password, last login, first name, username, blah blah blah. And then this is the structure. And then if you go to data, you will see the information that has been saved. This is number one. This is the login details for the first information. And then the second user that we created. This is the first user, this is the second user, this is it. So if I go to my authentication underscore user profile, which is this user profile, the first one I showed you was user. If I go to authentication underscore user profile, double click on it, it's gonna show you the structure as well. ID, first name, last name, profile picture, cover, DB, date of birth. This is it. All this information. User, first name, last name, profile, cover photo. This is it. This is everything. Now, if you user profile, um, so once you double click on it, it gives you the structure. And then if you go to data, you can see the information, the ID, the first name, last name, profile picture. You can expand it to see more information. Just maximize it and then you scroll. You can see everything here. Yeah. So this is for DB browser for SQLite and SQLite Studio. So I'm just gonna close it now. Now remember, when you run python manage.py run server, um, it's gonna take you to this Django administration panel. Let me click on logout. Click on login again. So when you run python manage.py run server, it's gonna take you to this interface. If you forget your email or password, or you forget your username and password, simply run python manage.py, create super user again to create a new login details. I've taught this in my previous lectures. Now I'm gonna log in. So I'm just gonna show you something else now. Now if I click on user profiles, you see I have my first name and last name. Because of this, why is it showing? It's not supposed to show oh first name and last name, because my string representation is just first name. I'm gonna check my user table. This is showing this. Mm, I didn't save the changes after reverting back to first name. So that is why it's still showing first name and last name on my user profile table. So I'm gonna click on file, click on save all, and then refresh this page. Yeah, so it's back to just my first name. Now if I want to display more information here, so I don't want to open this link to see more informations. Rather, I want to see a few more information at a glance here. Now remember, I told you you can use this code to return this particular one, to return the first name. You can use this particular code to display first name and last name. But what if I want to include maybe date of birth, address, line 1, address, line 2, nationality? I'm not just gonna keep on concatenating it, add plus, and make this code longer. No. So let me just highlight, comment out this again and leave just this. So in that case, if I want to display more information here and also be able to edit the information right here, instead of going to this link and editing it, I can edit it here, but I don't want to edit. I want to be able to quickly edit some informations right here and also to see more information right here. What I need to do, I need to go to my code, go to admin.py, admin.py. Remember, when we created our model, we registered it on our admin.py side. We say admin.site.register user. Then we also said admin.site.register user profile. So whenever you create your model user profile, you come to this admin.py and then register it. If you don't register it here, you're not gonna see the information. You're not gonna see this link on this your Django administration panel. So that is why you have to register it. But now I want to add more fields here. So you come back to this your admin.py, just go to the top, and then you're gonna create two classes now. So first thing you say class, then you give it a name. This name can be anything you like. I'm just gonna call it user admin. I'm just gonna call it user admin. You can call yours something different to make your code unique. Now open bracket and say admin dot model. So it's gonna inherit from the model admin class. Put a semicolon and then you type this code list underscore display. So list display is the information you want to display. Open a bracket and then what do you want to display? Simply go to your models.py and okay, admin. Let me go back to my admin. So user admin. So I want to create a list display for this for the user. So I'm gonna go to my models, go to my user model. So on my user model, let me go to users here. This is my Django administration panel. I have only first name, but I want to display more. So I'm gonna pick username as well, copy it, just copy the username, go to your admin.py, add it inside the quotes, add control V, paste it, username. So now it's gonna display this string representation. No, sorry. Yeah. Let's continue. Username. Then I also want to display the email. So go to your admin, put a comma, in quotes, control V, email as well. Now, I also want to display if the person is a staff or not. Control C. You can type it out if you want. Put a comma. So this is enough. I want to display the username, email, and the staff status. On your own code, you can include a super user as well. Now remember, at the end of the last one, put a comma. If you don't put a comma, it's gonna give you an error. Now, when you declare this class, copy this class name, user admin, come to this place that you want to on this model, admin.site.register user, put a comma and paste it. It's that simple. So you see, this one is just gonna display only the first name, only the first name on this string representation. But for this one now, for the user model, is gonna display all these informations. So click on File and click on Save All, and then simply refresh your page. Refresh this user. Click on it. Look, so you see it's showing the username, the email, and then its staff status. If I add more, if I come to these models, I'm just gonna select the super user option as well. Go to my admin.py, add it here, and put a comma at the end. Click on File, click on Save. Refresh it again. Site cannot be reached. I think there's an error. I'm gonna click on Save All. I need to reload my page. So now it has included a super user. So I'm just gonna remove this from mine. So that is it. Now, if you want to do the same for my user profile now, click on user profiles. It has just my first name. Now, if you want to do the same with the user profile, simply copy this code and modify it, or type it afresh. Double click, duplicate it, take care of the indentations. Now, so for my list display, it's not gonna be username, email, and a start because these fields are not in my user profile model. So in fact, I'm just gonna type it afresh. So to do the same for the user profile, type class and call it user profile admin. So I'm calling it something similar but with admin at the end so that I'll be able to know, okay, user admin is for user, and then user profile admin is for this user profile. So open bracket and say admin dot model admin. So it's gonna inherit from model admin, and then semicolon, press enter, type list this underscore display equals to, then open brackets, parenthesis, what do you want to display? Go to your models, make sure that you spell it correctly. Go to your models. I'll select, I want to display user. Oh, copy it, or you can type it if you want. User. I also want to display the first name, I want to display the last name, I also want to display nationality, for example. Don't forget to put your comma at the end, and then copy this class name, user profile admin, copy it, come to this admin.site.register, put a comma, and you paste it. And you simply go to File, click on Save All. Now, go to your admin panel. It was showing just my first name, but now refresh the page, you see nationality. This nationality is too long. It's because I used an autofiller. So I'm just gonna change this nationality to something reasonable. Japan. Just gonna change this to Tokyo. Save. Now you see, so it's showing username, first name, last name, and nationality. For your code, you should change it up. Maybe this you can include zip code, the mobile number, or whatever you want. Just include more to make your code unique. So this is it. Now, when you go to your users, it's showing username, email, and the staff. If you click, you have to click on it first before it can show you the detailed view. Same applies to the user profile model. At a glance, I can see more information now. But if I click, I can see the detailed view. So for example, this is good because if you're looking for a record, for example, you don't need to, maybe you have 10 records, you are saying ever, there are two ever, for example. Okay, I'm just gonna change this back to, yeah, no, don't worry. So you want to browse the information, without opening it. You can see more information. Okay, this is the person I'm actually looking for, or this is the record I'm looking for. So this is gonna give you a quick preview of some of the contents in here before you can click on it. So this is it. Now, when you open it, you can edit this first name, right? You can edit it. I have my first name here, but I also want to be able to edit it directly from here instead of opening it up first before editing it. Now, what you need to do, just simply come to this class that you've defined, add a second option, type list editable, list editable. That is it. So with list editable equals to um yes. So I want to be able to edit the first name, and I also want to edit the last name. Remember, you can only edit what you are displaying. For example, I'm displaying user, first name, last name, and nationality. I'll not be able to edit DOB because I am not displaying it here. I can only edit the DOB if I open up the information. If I open up the information, so yeah, only when I open up the information that I can edit the DOB. But for these ones that I have listed here, I can edit it without opening up the information. Now, list editable, first name and last name. Don't forget to put your comma at the end. Click on File and Save All. And then this is for profile admin. So I'm just gonna refresh my page. So you see, I can edit my first name now. I can edit my last name because I said list editable. If I remove it by putting a comment on it, for example, and click on File, Save All, and refresh this page, it's gonna disappear. You're not gonna be able to edit it again until you open it up. When you open it, you can edit it. But if I remove these comments and click on File, Save All, and refresh my page, it's gonna give me the option of editing it right here. Right here. Once you click on Robin Hood, click on Save. it has edited it. So you don't necessarily need to open it up to see the detailed view before you'll be able to edit it. Now let's do the same thing for our user profile, these users. I want to be able to edit the email from here instead of opening it first before editing it. I can edit it from here and click on save, but I want to be able to edit it here. Now you simply go here as well, this user admin, press enter, click on list editable equals. I want to be able to edit the email, and also I want to be able to edit the username. Put a comma at the end, go to file and save all, and then refresh the page. Mm, okay, now when you this is not gonna work. So username, email is gonna I'm gonna change this back to it. Let me make this the first one, username, and then before email. I'm gonna click on file, click on save all, and, and refresh my page. Okay, now this is the error. It says authentication.user, the value of list editable refers to the first field in the display link, which cannot be used unless this display link is set. Now, this will not work. This will not work because my username is set as a display link. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm just gonna comment this code, file, save all, refresh my page. So your list editable cannot be this one because this is a display link. This is a link that opens up the detailed view. So an object cannot be both a link and also editable. Let me show you on the user profile model. Now, if I come to this user profile model, you see I can edit this user first name, I can edit this last name. But assuming that this first name is a link, it cannot be both a link and have this text input field. That means you cannot click on it. So you see here now, this Elvis is a link. But if you make this editable, it means this Elvis cannot be a link and at the same time a text box where you can edit. That is why we had an issue with this user admin, because I'm saying I want to be able to edit username. Meanwhile, username is a link. If I go to my users, this is it. Username is a link. So it cannot be edited. So I have to remove it. Instead of that, I want to be able to edit only email, or maybe if I want to edit his staff as well, I can also do that. So I'll add his underscore staff. I want to be able to edit it. Then now I click on file, I click on save all. Now refresh your users page. You see it's working now. So I can edit the email from here. I can also set the staff value to true or false if I want. Once I make the changes, I click on save. If I don't want to edit it from here, I can click it to open the detail view and edit here. So this is how to manipulate your admin panel. Now there's another option that you can add. Now we've done list display, we've done list editable, let's do list display link, list display underscore link. This list display underscore link is this object. Now look at it. So by default, it makes your string representation the display link. So whatever you put here, models.py, this string representation self.username is gonna be the display link by default. But what if I want to make other objects the display link? Let me go to my user profile. Now I have Elvis, first name, last name, and nationality. Remember, you cannot make this a display link again because we've defined this as list editable. So in this option, we can only make Japan a display link. If you want to make first name a display link, it means you will change it from list editable. Now, I come here, I'll say, go to my admin.py. Let me do the link with my user profile model first. So I'll come here, press enter. I say list underscore display link now equals to nationality. Why? Put a comma when you're done. Now I cannot make first name a list display link and I cannot make last name a list display link because they are set as editable. So when you making changes to this code, instead for your list editable, maybe you want to use something else, nationality or address line 1, address line 2, take note of this information. So I can only make something that is not list editable as a list display link. Now I go to file, go to save all. So I'm just gonna refresh my user profile table, and then you see Japan can now be clicked as well. Nationality can be clicked. I have changed the list display link from username to nationality. Now I want to have two display link, so I'm also gonna make username a display link. You can add more fields here. This display link nationality, I'll say, what was it? It was first underscore name. So I'll put first underscore name and put comma. Go to file, go to save all, come to my page, refresh it. Oh, there's an error now. So first name cannot be in both list editable and list display link. Yes, so you see, I put first name as list editable. So what was it? It was user. Um, so I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna make it user because user is not in editable. Go to file, go to save all, and then refresh the page. So you see user profiles. Now user can be edit. User is now a link. Nationality is also a link. If you click on Japan, it's gonna open it up. If you click on user, it's also gonna open it up. So this is how to play with it. Now I'm gonna go to my user model as well. I have just username, so I'll add another field to this so that I can also make it a display link. So but for now, username is the only display link. Now where is it? Here. So what am I going to do? List display. Yeah, I don't have much option with this because I just have my user model. I have username, email, is staff, is super user. So I can't do much with this. Username, email, is staff, is underscore super user. So you can't make this a display link because this is gonna be is just a boolean field, true or false. It's a checkbox. Let me show you what I mean. is staff is a checkbox, so this cannot be a link. If you add this is super user as well, it's still gonna be a checkbox. So if I add a super user, let me go to my admin, and then here I'll add is underscore super user. Let me check if the spelling is correct. Is underscore super user. So if I click on file and save, I've added this as part of the list edit. Sorry. So list display, I need to display it first. List underscore super user, display it here. So before you can add it here, is underscore super user. You display it on this list display before you can add it as editable. And don't forget to put your comma at the end. And then you click on file, you click on save all. Yeah. So now if I refresh this page, yeah, you see it has included if the person is a super user or not. So this cannot be a link. So as we progress with this course, I'm going to show you how to add more attributes and how to manipulate your admin panel further. So now the next thing we're gonna be doing is we have to create uh, Django forms. Now we need to create Django forms, because what we've done so far is just to create our user model and our user profile model, which is our database tables. So this is the user profile model table, and this is also another table. Now the aim is not for the user to come to the admin panel to be inputting their information. So we want to create a form that we can render as HTML templates. We can render on the front end, so that when the user goes to our app, he can input they can input their username and also input their user profile. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing next. So Django forms are a very powerful feature, that comes with the Django web framework. It's designed to handle, user data validation, enable the users to input information, to render the form easily on the HTML. So you don't start writing a lot of HTML code. It's just gonna make the process of creating an interface simpler, and yeah, it's gonna make everything simpler, more dynamic, and secured as well. So yeah, this is what we're gonna be doing now. So how do you create your user forms? Go to your app. This is my app. I want to create it inside my authentication app. Go to your app, right click on your app name and click on new file. Call it forms.py. We've only created our database so far. Now we want to start allowing the user go to our web interface and input their information. That is why we are creating our Django forms. Django forms to populate our database, to populate these fields. So if you come to this admin panel, for example, this is like a form. This is like a form. So these informations are calling from the database. Remember when I showed you how to browse this database on DB browser for SQL? This DB browser for SQL, DB browser for SQL, and SQLite Studio. So these informations, these models are our database table, which you can access from your DB browser for SQLite, you know. But yeah, so this is the form. This is a form where you can input information, but this information will be saved in the database. That's what I'm trying to say. So I've created my forms.py now. So yeah, now the first thing you're gonna do a few imports. So you say from Django.forms, from Django import forms. That is the first import you're gonna do. Then the next thing you're gonna do, from Django.contrib.auth.forms, import user creation form. Import user creation form. Now you've imported these two. Now you need to import your user model and your user profile model as well. This model and also this model. Now go back to forms. How do you import that? You say form dot mm, yeah, form dot models import user, and you say form dot models import user profile. This is it. Models import user profile and import user as well. Go back to forms. So like I explained in my last lecture, I say these dots, I said dots because both forms and models, they are inside the same directory. They're inside this authentication directory. That's why I say form dot models import user. You can also say form authentication dot models import user. It's the same thing. So from authentication, it means from authentication app dot models, then inside this model import the user model. But you don't need to do this, although it's still gonna work. This is shorter because you use dot because they're in the same directory. Assuming this user is in another directory, that's when you have to do this. So for now, I'm just gonna delete this. So the next thing you have to do is you define a class. Now you say class, call it anything. I'm just gonna call it class user um, register form. So I want to create a class for my user. Now remember, this user is a table that holds the username and the password. So yeah, now open a bracket and you say uh, user creation form. So it's gonna inherit from user creation form. Put a semicolon and use type class meta colon. Now you say model equals user. So we are saying the model that we are creating this form for is user model, which we've imported here. So this is the model, user model, user model. So you say model equals user. Take care of indentation. Let me start this again. So after the semicolon, press enter and you type class meta, capital M. Just press enter and then you say model equals user. It's that simple. And then the last thing you need to do, you define the fields you want to display. Fields equals square brackets. I'm gonna say username. So the user can type in their username, email, password 1, password, password 2. Now, this user model by default has a field called password 1 and password 2. If you go to this our user model now, you're not gonna see password 1 and password 2. I only defined username, email, and then I said is staff by default is false, is super user by default is also false. There is no I didn't define password 1 and password 2, but by default password 1 and password 2 comes with this model, this abstract user model. Remember, we created a class called user which inherits from abstract user model. So this abstract user model has password 1 and password 2. And by inheritance, the password 1 and password 2 has been passed to this. So you can use, the password 1 and password 2 that comes with abstract user model because this user model is inheriting from this class. Now, this is all that we need to do for our user creation form. So with this now, the user will be able to only input their username, their email, password 1 and password 2. This password 2 is used for like confirm password. When you type your first password, it says input your confirm password and these two passwords has to match. Yeah, so this is all that you need to do for our user creation form, and this is staff and a super user, they are automatic. So by default, once the user enters this information and click on save or create, it's gonna assign these two default fields to false. His staff is false, his super user is also false. Then the username field, I'm saying when the person want to log in, the username field should be email. So it's not gonna ask enter your username, rather it's gonna say enter your email. Now I've explained all this before, so you can watch my previous video to have a better understanding. Go back to forms. Now we need to create, so when the user has created username and password, the user also need to create their profile. So this one, where is gonna put, this is gonna be automatic. Our code is gonna make it automatic, but the user should be able to input their first name, last name, profile picture, and all the rest. So we're gonna also define a form for our user profile. So you go back to your forms.py and then just go to the next line, press enter, take care of your indentation. So you declare another class, you call it class um, I'm just gonna call it profile form. Profile form. So this can be anything. This can be anything. Profile form. Open your brackets. Forms dots. This time around is gonna be model form. Forms dot model form. Put a semicolon, and then you say class meta as well. Capital M, class meta. Same thing we did, and then you say model equals what is gonna be the model? User profile. This user profile. Now fields equals, now which fields do you want? Go to your model and pick the information one after the other. I go to my model. I'm gonna select first name. Forms first name. Now I did not select username because we will write the code in a way that this username will automatically pick this user. So once the user inputs their username, email, and password, it's gonna save this information immediately and then assign this user to this user profile. That is why I didn't choose user, because we don't want maybe somebody to be creating a user profile and he will go and select another person's user account. Do you understand? So yeah, that is it. Now the second field I will pick is last name. Comma. Um, I'm just gonna copy. I'm copying these fields so that there wouldn't be any error, because sometimes when I type I make mistakes. So you see now we are populating, this form is gonna populate our database fields on the front end. So this is our model, this is our database, this is our user profile table. These are the fields. We are populating these fields on our front end through forms.py. So this forms.py, we're gonna render it on the front end so that the user can input this information. So last name. The next field I'm gonna pick is profile picture. Right. Forms, comma. The next field I'm gonna pick is cover photo, comma. The next field I'm gonna pick is DOB. I'm gonna pick address line 1. And just go to the next line and continue. I pressed enter. I'm gonna pick address line 2. Nationality. City. Zip or postcode. mobile number. Now, I'm not gonna pick created ads and modify that because I don't want the user to be able to select the time that is creating it. So on my code, I'm gonna write the code so that immediately you click on save, it's gonna automatically pick the current date and time and save it to this field. And also, whenever you modify your user profile, it will also pick the current date and time and save on this field as well. That's why I'm not gonna list this informations. I hope you get that. So it's as simple as this. Now, if you look at this form, we have first name, last name, profile picture, cover photo, date of birth. These fields are a little bit, profile picture field is different from last name field, is different from first name field, because this is a picture field and this is a text field. Date of birth, I don't want it to be a text field. I don't want the user to just type maybe 25th June 1993. Rather, I want the user to be able to select from date and time picker. So date and time field is also different from last name and first name. So we're gonna define other attributes for this. So address line 1, you can type it. Last name you can type, first name you can type, but you cannot type profile picture. You cannot type cover photo. You have to select a picture. And for data type, I don't want you to type it because you can make mistake. I want it to be a date and time picker. Nationality, you should type it. City, you should type. Zip code, you should type. Mobile number, you should type. But then not for cover photo, not for profile picture, not for um, DOB. I need to remove this comma here. It's not necessary. Now, so what do I do? I'm just gonna come to this top. Before my class meta, I'm gonna define other attributes. So I'm gonna say profile picture. Let me just copy it. Profile picture, come here. Profile picture equals image field. Image image field, open brackets. You say widgets. Widget equals file input. Mm, File input. Now there is an error on this image field and file input because we need to import, you know, something. So come to this top where you have all the importation and you type from Django.forms import image field and file input field. Say image field, comma, and file input field. Then I'm also gonna import date input, put comma, date input. Yeah, so this is it. Now, image field, file input, and date input. So the error is gone. So your profile picture, which is here and which is on your models as well, profile picture, we've added a new attribute for it that it should be an image field and the widget is file input. So on your HTML template, you're gonna see, an object, a file input object, so that you can click. Once you click it, it's gonna go to your system and ask you the location where the image is, maybe on your desktop, on your download, your picture folder, whatever, and then you select it. Now we're also gonna do the same thing for our photo, cover photo. So do the same thing. I'm just gonna copy this. Cover photo equals image field, the same thing. Image field widget equals file input. Now we have the last one is DOB. DOB. Make sure that this DOB is the same as what you're inputting here, and also the same thing as your model. So DOB will be, this is forms dot date field, then widget. The widget is gonna be forms forms dot date input. So is this intelligence feature is giving me the options. I'm just gonna select it. Yeah, so this is it. um let me see, let me add attributes. Yeah, attributes equals um curly brace, open quotes, I say type dates. So I'm just gonna explain what this means quickly. So yeah, like I said, we define these extra attributes because number one, picture, profile picture is not just a field where you can type like you have with last name or first name. That's why we need to specify profile picture equals image field. You are saying profile picture should be an image field, cover photo should be an image field as well. The widget is a file input. So the file input is gonna enable you browse through your computer system and pick the image that you want. And we're saying DOB, which is date of birth, should be forms.date field because we don't want the user to just type in uh, date of birth, but the user should be able to select their date of birth. And then yeah, we are saying the widget equals forms.date input, attribute type equals date. So forms dot date time field, so this is a form field for inputting dates in Django. It's going to validate that the date input is valid, because if we allow this user to just type their date of birth, they can type anything that they want. But when we use a date time picker, your options are restricted. You must do what the system is asking you to do. For example, if I come to my Django admin, um, if I go, just hold on. I'm just gonna go to my Django admin panel now. So if I go to my Django admin panel and go to user profile, for example, and click on add user. Now, if I want to type my date of birth now, here I can type it. But then if I click on this choose a date, I'm gonna be able to select it. But on our application, I don't want the user to type it. I want the user to select their date of birth through the date time picker. And that is why we defined all this. So we are saying attributes, the attribute type is date. So By setting these attributes to type date, it ensures that the form will render HTML5 inputs. So yeah, this is it. And so yeah, what do we need to do next? Let me see. I want to do some further customization. Now, if you look at this form, if you look at this user profile form, you'll see that it's giving you something. It says user, and then you select your user. Here it says first name, you type your first name. It says last name, you type your last name. So this is gonna enable you to know what this field is all about. Without this user, first name, last name, profile picture, you wouldn't know that this field is meant for to impute user. And you wouldn't know that this field is to impute last name, date of birth, and so on and so forth. So on this our forms now, if we leave it at this, you know what is gonna happen? The form will render this way, but without these informations. Without these informations. So let us customize our form so that it's also gonna have these informations. So how do we do that? Now come below. After you define all the fields, press enter, type widgets equals to open curly brace, and then press enter to bring down the last curly brace so you can have space. And then you start typing all this one after the other. Just copy it. First name field, put it in quotes. First name field, put semicolon. Forms, forms dot text inputs. It's a forms dot text inputs. Open a bracket. Attributes equals um, attribute equals open a curly brace. Just once you press one curly brace, it closes it automatically. And quotes, type placeholder, semicolon, first name. Now, with this now, when this form renders, it's gonna have this option, first name as well. If you don't include this, like I said, this first name is just gonna be a text input field without this option to let the user know that this text input is for first name. So it's that simple. You open type widget equals, you open a curly brace. This is quotes, put the name of the field, forms.text input. So we are saying it should be a text input like this. And then the placeholder is going to be first name. This can be anything. You can say enter your first name. So for yours, you can leave it like this. I told you before that you should make some changes to your code so that it's gonna be different from mine. It's gonna be unique to you. So I'm just gonna leave mine as first name. And then you do the same thing for the rest of the fields. Just copy this, paste it, change change first name, put a comma after the first one, change first name to last name. You simply change the attributes, placeholder, attribute equals last name. That's simple. Do the same thing. Um, do the same thing for the next field. So put a comma. Don't do it for profile picture. Don't do it for cover photo. Don't do it for date of birth because we already defined something here. I'm gonna show you how to put maybe a comment below. Yeah, a comment below these objects to let the user know what it's about. So the next one is gonna be address line 1. So for profile picture, cover photo, and DOB, we're gonna use something we call help text for them. So address line 1, copy it, and you change this to address line 1. Placeholder, you change it to address 1 or whatever you want. Or you can say your address. Enter your address. So I'm just gonna revert back to what I have. Address 1, and then I'm gonna copy this. Uh, put a comma at the end. Address 2. Uh, just put address 2, and then placeholder will be address 2. Nationality. So I'm gonna keep it simple. In the future or very soon, I'm gonna show you how to make this a drop down box so that the user can just select the nationality instead of typing it, because when you allow users type some informations, they can make a mistake, you know but if you have option for selecting drop down, always use it. But for last name and first name, stuff like that, you cannot really use a drop down because you don't know what the first name and last name is gonna be. But for something like nationality, you can populate all the information of country information through the country API. There's an API called country API where you can populate all the countries, and then the user is just gonna click on the drop down and select their countries. But for now, I'm just gonna keep it simple by allowing the user to type it. As we progress, I'm gonna show you how to use JavaScript to call the country API. Now I'm gonna change this to nationality. Um, Type nationality. So these codes are pretty simple. Sometimes it may look bulky, but they are just basic stuff and simple stuff. But as a beginner, you're gonna make mistakes. Try to resolve your errors, and that's how you're gonna learn. And then always remember to write back to me if you have issues that you can't resolve. Just copy this. I'm just repeating what I've done. Change this to city, nationality, take care of indentation, city, type city, copy this again, zip or postcode, enter zip or postcode. Um, Mobile number. I'm just gonna copy this. Mobile number. Yeah. So This is everything. Click on file and save all. Now, to recap, we can also do the same thing for our user registration form. So yeah, so for user registration form as well, what you simply need to do, I'm just gonna come to this code that we've already done with get, copy it, come to your user registration form, because for this I just said fields. The fields will be username, email, password 1 and password 2. So you're just gonna show an empty form, an empty text field for this, for the email, for password 1 and password 2. So I need a text before this text field so that the user can know what this text field is all about. So press enter, just paste what we've done before. You can delete some of them. I'm just gonna leave 3. So change this to username. The first one will be username. The second one, I'm gonna say email. So enter your email, enter your email, and password 1, enter your password, copy it, change this to password 2, repeat password. That's everything. So for this, for our user registration form, which is using our user model, we didn't define other attributes like we did on our profile model, because we don't have picture, cover photo, and date of birth. So yeah, this is it. Click on file and click on save all. Now, so far we have created our database tables for our user. User is to input, to allow the users input their email, their username, and their password. We've also created the table for our user profile. So when the user input their email, their username, and their password, it's also gonna display a form that they're gonna use to type in their first name, last name, profile picture, cover photo, just like you do when you're registering on Facebook, on Gmail, and other web applications, or whatever, your school registration system, hospital registration system, whatever. This is how they do capture the information. So this is the database tables, 2 tables, and then we've also created our forms to render our database tables. So you see, all these fields, they are fields from the database tables. Now, the last thing that we're gonna do is to write our logic so that when the user inputs these informations, it's gonna save everything on the database and tell the user that your profile has been successfully created, and also allow the user log in to their page. So that is the last thing that we need to do. So what are we gonna do? To do that, we need to go to our views.py, go to our authentication app, go to our views.py, and we have to write our logic in here now. So this is the last step that we're gonna do for our backend. So if you are a backend developer, or you want to specialize in backend developer, this is where your work ends. And then the front end guys can design the front end templates. You get, but if you're a full stack developer, you're gonna do all this backend logic, and then you're also gonna design the front end. So yeah, this course I'm teaching full stack development. So after we finish doing our backend logic, we also gonna, design our front end. But our front end is gonna be very simple because we've already created the forms. So this form is just gonna render on the HTML page, but we still need to, beautify our interface, you know, and choose our colors, our font style and everything, the CSS basically. Now, so now um, so we want to write our logic so that when the user uses this form to type in their information, it's gonna be saved on the database. So connecting our front end to our back end and saving information to the database. This is what we have to do now. So you go to your authentication and go to your views.py, and now you're gonna type in some code. So now you create a function. We're gonna use function-based methods, but later in the future we're gonna use class-based functions. I'm gonna say def. I'll call my views name register. Register. You can call yours whatever you want. Open brackets, type request. Remember what we did when we displayed our home page, when we displayed a welcome message on our home page. Remember, we went to our book and write folder and created our views. Define home request, return render request.html. So we're gonna do similar stuff for our profile creation. So you say define or def register request, put a semicolon, you press enter, and then you start writing your code. Like I said, this can be whatever you want. Now, um, before then, I'm I'm gonna do some imports. I'm gonna say from Django dot shortcuts, or let me not do the import, so you're gonna understand what those imports are for. I'm just gonna write the codes. When it's necessary to do the imports, I'll do it. Now say if request dot method equals equals to quotes post. Now remember, when you're saving information on the database, when you're saving information on the database is a post method. So this is a form. If I fill this form and then I click on save, it's a post method. And that's why for our application as well, we are saying if request.method is equals post. Get method is when you're trying to retrieve information from the front end, but when you're sending something to the database is a post method. So you say if request.method equals to post, and then you go to the next line. You say form equals which of the form? User registration form. Which form are we going to use? You say this one, user registration form. Go back to your views. Form equals user registration form. Open a bracket. Say request dot post. Now this is giving us error because we need to import the user registration form. This user registration form that we created, user register form that we created. So how do you import it? Come to this your top menu. Come to this top section where you have all your imports, and you type form. I told you earlier how to import form dot forms because both forms and views, they are in the same authentication directory. Form.forms imports user register form, and so this error is going to disappear. So remember, we need two forms because these are two different tables. This is a user table and this is a user profile table, but we want the user to input both their username, email, and password. At the same time, they should also input their user profile form, their user profile. That's why we've already created the forms for the user. This is it, user register form. This form, you are saying the model is user, and we also created another form, profile form, and we said the model should be user profile. So on your views, you also say now I say form2 equals, it's gonna be user profile form, this other form, this user profile form. So you also need to import it. So you come to your views and you say form dot forms imports uh, profile form. If you type profile, it's gonna bring it out for a profile form. Now these two lines, they are not, this is just duplication of code. You can put comma here and type profile form instead of doing it twice. Delete this because they are the same thing. They are all inside this form, so I'm just gonna import them together. So I say form2 equals profile form, select it, profile form, and you say request dot post. Yeah, this is it. Now form is a variable name, form2 is also a variable name, but let me change it up so it's gonna be, we know what we're doing better. So I say I'm just gonna call it um, um, user form. I'm gonna call this profile form. So you can call yours whatever you want, they are just variable names. So I'm saying user form equals user register form. Go to your forms, you are saying is user register form, and remember this user register form is using our user model, our database table called user. So this is the two lines of code. You've called them up in this your method, and then what do you need to do? Go to the next line. Now we're gonna type a conditional statement. Type if user form dot is valid, is underscore valid, open bracket, open bracket and close, and profile form dot is underscore valid, bracket open and close, semicolon. So we are saying that the next action should execute only if the user form and the profile form are valid. So now if I go to this my forms, we're saying when you click on save, it should only save if these inputs are valid. So for example, if this input is not valid, let me try something now. I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna click on ever, you know, fill some informations. I'm gonna skip this, I'm gonna skip this, and then I'm just click on save. It's not gonna save because there is a user profile that is using ever already. So this form is not valid. That is why it's not saving, and it's showing us all the errors where there are invalid data or missing data. So that's what we are saying. If user form is valid and if profile form underscore is valid. So this is how we validate our forms. So the user cannot just come here and do whatever they like and click on save and go. it must meet to our requirements before the form will be saved to the database. So this is why we did this here. If um, um, user form is valid and profile form underscore is valid. Now press enter. I'm just gonna say new underscore user. This is a variable name equals user form dot save. User form dot save. These are two different tables. The user form and the profile form, they are two different tables. But we want to first of all save the user form. That is why we declared a new variable and said user form dot save. Do you know why we're saving the user form first? Now, if you check our model, you're gonna discover that we are saying that when you want to create your user profile, it should pick the user. This field should pick the user. So it can only pick the user if this one is already saved. So once it is saved, it goes to this user database table and then picks the user. And that is why on this form, we are saving our user form first. Remember, user form is a variable name used to hold our user register form. And this user register form, if you go to our forms.py, the model or the database table we are using is user. So we are saying it should save it first before we perform any other action. Now, what we need to do is press enter and set another variable name, say username equals uh, form dot clean data. Form dot clean underscore data dot gets comma say user in quotes. No, not form. So we say new user equals um, user form dot clean data dot get username. I'm gonna explain this. So we say username. This is a variable name. I can just change it to the username so that you will not be confused. So this can be anything. The username equals user form dot clean data dot get username. Now, do you know why I declared this? I declared this so that when the user finish typing their information and click on save, I can say welcome and the username. So if your username is Eva, for example, I want to display a welcome message. So I want to pick your username and say maybe welcome Eva, but at this point, this is not necessary. I don't want to make this code very complex for you, so I'm just gonna delete it for now, and then later on as we progress, when you master this, I'm gonna bring up some of this stuff. So let me just delete this for now and just leave it at what we had before. So now what I need to do, I'm gonna say um, um yeah, profile equals um profile form. This profile form dot save. Yes, profile form dot save. I'm just gonna say commit equals to false. I won't commit it. So there is something here That was why I was a little bit slow. My naming convention is not right. So I call this is a variable name which is called profile form, but then my forms as well is called profile form. So I need to make it different. And that is why when I said profile form dot save, instead of picking this profile form, it's picking this form. So I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna say user profile form. So user profile form. So I need to change this back to user profile form. Control V, user profile form. Then now I will say take care of your indentation. Profile equals user profile. Yeah, so this is it. Now I say user form equals user register form request dot post. User profile form equals profile form request dot post. User register form and profile form are coming from our forms.py that we created. And then I said if user form is valid and user profile form, this user profile form is underscore valid, I'm saying new user equals user form dot save. So all the information that the user will input inside the user form will be saved. And then profile form equals user profile form dot save. Now I am saving it, but I am not committing it. No, so at this point it's saved. It's saved in a variable called profile, but is not saved in the database yet. But this user form is saved in the database because I did not say commit equals to false. Now I want to grab something. That is why I said commit equals to false. It is not gonna be saved. So now what do I need to do? I will say profile dot user equals new user. So let me put a comment for you. Assigning the profile form to the newly created user. Now let me explain this code. Look at our model. On our model, we said user equals models dot one-to-one field user. And at this point, we are saving both our user form and our profile form together. Now, how will the application pick this user and assign it to this field? That is the reason why we saved our user form here in the database, and then we now save when it's time to save our profile form. We said commit equals to false. It should not save it. Now we are saying profile.user. Remember, profile profile is a variable name that is used to hold our user profile form. Our user profile form is on a file called forms.py, which is our user registration form. And then the model is user. I hope you understand that. So we say user profile form equals profile form, which is on uh, uh, this is it, profile form. This is it. User profile. This is a variable name that holds our user profile form, which is on our forms.py. And then we now said new user. We assign another variable equals user form.save. User form.save. And we assigned another variable again. We say profile profile equals user profile. This user profile that is holding this profile form dot save commit equals to false. Now we are saying profile dot user. Why did we say profile dot user? Because this profile is holding this our database table. So profile dot user. This user is coming from our model user. So we are now saying profile.user equals new user. This is how we passed this user that we created to this user field. It's very difficult to explain this, sometimes, but as you type the code and you keep on practicing, you're gonna understand it better. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to explain to complete beginners. So we are saying profile.user equals new user. I hope you understand that. If you don't understand, just let me know on the comment section or send me an email. I will schedule a call and explain it to you on a one-to-one basis like I've done for a lot of people. Now, once you've passed the user to the profile, you can now save the profile. You say profile.save. So at this point, it's gonna save into the database. Now, you need to display a message. We say messages dot success request um request comma your account has been saved successfully. So customize your message, make it different from mine. Now, this is giving an error. Messages is giving an error because we need to import the message framework. So go to your top and you just gonna type from django.contrib import message. From django.contrib import messages. It's as simple as that. And once you do this import, this error vanishes. Now, we've successfully saved our um, profile form. Now, what I need to do, I wanted to, automatically log in the user after the profile has been created, but I wouldn't make it more complex. I'm just gonna stop it at this. When you understand these concepts, I'm gonna add more code to it. So we say if user form is valid, all these actions should be performed. So we need an else statement. Take your cursor back to be on the same line with this second if statement. And then you say else, type else, semicolon, type enter. So you say user form and user profile form. So you say user form equals user form equals user register form. Brackets. Do the same thing. Profile form equals profile form. So we are saying if the form is valid, it should perform all this action and save the both forms and then display a message. But if the form is not valid, it should render this form again. It should render this form again on the front end. So that is it. Now take your cursor back, and then on this your after this you need to type context equals, this context can be anything. I'll show you. Curly brace, open a curly brace, and then you say user form, type, copy this user form, put it inside there, put a colon, user form, comma, enter. Do the same for this user profile form, colon, user profile form, user profile form. That is it. So let me close this terminal so you can see everything. And then what do we need to do? Lastly, you need to render this on the HTML template. Remember what we did there on our views when we displayed our a welcome message on our home page. We did return render request home.html. That's similar to what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna go back to my authentic authentication app and my views. So press enter. On the same line as your else statement, you type return render, return render, and then open brackets. You can close this if you want. Type request, comma. Where do you want to render this form? I'm just gonna put I'll say authentication / register dot html. I'm gonna explain this. Then after this HTML, put a comma, put this context that you typed here. Yeah, that is it. So I'm gonna explain this line of code. So I say return render. It should render an HTML page. Request. This request, whatever you have here, whatever you have your request, it's what you're gonna input here. Request. Now we are saying authentication / register.html. So we are saying this form, this form, this code should be executed in an HTML file called register.html. So you can call this whatever you want. You can call this registration page, registration page.html, or you can call it whatever you want. Just register.html, and we are saying this register.html is in a folder called authentication. So we will go to a folder called authentication, and inside authentication we'll have register.html. Now this is how to group our HTML templates so that we can easily find them. Now now uh, uh, this authentication can be anything. It can be anything, whatever. You can call it any folder, you know, you can call it any name. But I like to call, if I want to create HTML template for my app. So this HTML template, remember, is for this authentication app. I like to call the folder the same thing as my app folder name, as my app name, so that if I have like maybe 10 apps, I have authentication, I have book a room, I have a payments app. Now, if I want to visit the HTML page for any of those apps, if I come to my templates, I'll just go to that folder. I'll know that, okay, authentication app has all the HTML templates for authentication app. Sorry, authentication folder has all the HTML pages for my authentication app. So now when you do this, come to your templates, right click, create a new folder, call it this name, this authentication, authentication, right? And then inside the authentication, you now create an HTML file called register.html. So come to your authentication, right click, click on new file, call it register.html. It's that simple. So now if I come to my template, remember the template has all my HTML files. If I come to my template and I come to authentication, I'll see my register. So when I come to my template, I know that every file inside this authentication belongs to this authentication app. So if I want to create another HTML template from authentication app, maybe reset password, I'll come to this authentication as well and click on reset a new file and call it reset password.html. When I create another app, I'll create a folder as well for the app name and put all the HTML files inside it. So now I'm saying this code, this form, this form should be accessible inside register.html. Now, when you type this code, when you type all this code that is gonna validate the inputs, pick all the information and save in the database, you have to pass it as a context dictionary. So now, to be able to access this form, you must pass it as a context dictionary. That's why I said context equals dictionary, user form equals user form. This can be anything at all, and this can be anything at all. So I'm going to show you how to call up this user form on the front end. So user form, this user form can be a user form or anything, equals user form. But this user form has to be this user form that you defined. So it's a user form equals request, user form equals user registration form. This user registration form is coming from our forms.py, and I say user profile form equals profile form, which is coming from forms.py as well. So here now on your context dictionary, this is just a dictionary name, and this is a value. So this dictionary name, the user form, has to be, this one cannot be anything. This one must be this one. This one also must be this one. But this dictionary name can be anything. It can be anything at all. The user form equals user form, user profile form equals user profile form. Now, after I type return render request authentication slash register.html, you put this context inside it. If you don't put this context inside this, these forms cannot be accessed on this register.html. Now, this can be anything. In this context, you can call it data equals this, but if you call it data, you have to come to this context and change it to data as well. So I'm just gonna change it. Some people use data, some people use context. Context, it changes back to context. So this is where it gets tricky, a little bit tricky. All this while we've been doing some easy stuff, and some people have been happy, sending me messages, chatting me up, they're happy with everything, but this is the tricky part of it. And I can tell you, if you've understood my tutorial from the beginning up to this point, then you are already approaching a junior developer role status. Now, when you want to implement this code, make sure that there are no noise around you. Make sure there is no distraction. Make sure you are not hungry. Make sure you are not tired. Make sure you're focused. Once you understand to this point, trust me, every other thing is gonna be a walk in the park. It's gonna be easy for you. So just take your time, digest this video, implement this code, try to make one or two changes. If you have any issues, don't forget to write back to me. Those who have a number, you should call me. You can chat me up on WhatsApp. You can drop a comment on the YouTube video, on this YouTube video on the comment section. I'm gonna respond to you, or I'm gonna start a meeting, connect to your system and check an error. If you have any error and you don't ask me of my help, you get frustrated and drop out, then it's on you. Don't think that it's gonna just be easy and you just gonna breeze through this tutorial without having any challenges or not. No, if it's so easy, then everybody's gonna be a developer. So it is not difficult, it is procedural. Take your time, understand it. You will encounter issues definitely, and then you seek for my help. So I'm just gonna stop this video at this point because I think it has gotten too long. Now, if you're a backend developer, trust me, Your duty as a backend developer at this stage is over. Now it is left for the front end developers to, to build the front end, the CSS and everything, So your work as a backend developer is over at this point. But then on my next video, we're gonna design our front end, do our CSS, the coloring and everything, and then you're gonna see how the user is gonna input their information on the front end and it's gonna be saved on the database. So all this while we've been using this form through this Django admin now, but we've implemented what they have implemented. The only thing that we need to do is now to display it on the front end like this. Choose our coloring, choose our positioning, and then the user can input their username, their password, and nationality or whatever. So I'm gonna end this video at this point, and then I will see you again hopefully tomorrow. Bye bye and thank you.